Hey, what's going on, guys? Coming at you with a quick updated deck profile, and today I'll be showing you guys my Counter Fairy Demise deck. So I actually got to test this out at my locals last night, our local tournament. Actually performed really well. I was kind of surprised with how well it performed. The only match loss I had throughout the whole tournament was to a Blue Eyes deck, and honestly I felt like I had control throughout all three games, and the deck did its job. It's just the game two, he was able to stall me out with high defenders, and I just could not draw into the answers I needed, and I eventually decked out. And then game three, he won just by a few hundred life points in time. So, yeah, not the best way to lose, but just one of those things that happens sometimes, especially with a deck like this. With this version, it's more meant to kind of control the game and stun your opponent compared to doing a lot of damage. So starting off, for the Counter Fairy monsters, we of course have the free Bountiful Artemis and the free Guardian Ariadne, standard for any Counter Fairy deck. Ariadne, I've said many times, just so good, being able to make your counter traps cost free. And then Artemis, you just gain so much advantage off of drawing cards each time a counter trap is activated. Next, we have the two Archfiend Eccentric, just generically a really good pendulum monster. You can splash into just about any pendulum deck. Good for its MST effect, which I sometimes use on Ariadne if I have multiples of it in hand, so it can be good for that. Also, just in general for popping back row or for popping monsters, it's really good. Next, we have the one Luster. I decided to cut out the rest of the Draco engines. There's no Master, no Lecter, and no Face-Off. The problem I found with that engine is that those other cards were dead draws a lot of the time. I really couldn't do much with them, especially on turns where I had Demise and Duality. And honestly, I would usually see Luster much faster than I would see Face-Off, and the times I would see Face-Off, I would never be able to get Luster and scale with Ariadne like I wanted. So honestly, it wasn't worth it, and it made room for me to add in some cards to make the deck a bit more control-oriented. Then speaking of control, for the final monster, we had a 2 Fossil Dyna. This was really good in testing throughout the last couple times I've played with this at my locals. Just really shuts down a lot of decks, especially when you have so many counter traps that can protect it. You have an equipped card like Mage's Power, which buffs it up to a really high attack. So overall, just a really good card. So that's it for monsters. Of course, for spells, we have the triple card Demise. Really hope this card doesn't get hit on the next list, but I'm not keeping my hopes up because it is a really good card. Makes it to where decks like this actually stand a chance against this meta, but we'll see. 1 second. Alright, there we go. Next, we have the triple power duality for obvious reasons. Next, as I mentioned, we had a double Mage Power. I prefer this over the Moon Mirror Shield because when you combine the Pendulum Scales and the Field Spell, you have just such a high attack buff that you can give to your monsters, up to 4,000 extra attack and defense. I actually had an OTK yesterday where I had a Guardian Ariadne up to over 8,000 attack and swung directly for game, which felt awesome. I also had one time where I had a Fossil Dyna up to 9,200 attack with 2 Mage Power, so it's just really good. Just unfortunately not enough room to play free, but I do prefer it over Moon Mirror Shield because in this deck the whole recycling it back to deck isn't as relevant since your opponent will usually be able to get over your board if they do get over to Moon Mirror Shield that turn. So I just like the the bit of extra damage you can do with Mage Power. Next we have the double Necro Valley, just a really good floodgate as I mentioned many times, especially good for being a field spell. Next one of those we of course have the one Raigeki. Just helps get over bigger boards since this deck does really struggle with that, as I kind of found out yesterday. Then finally the one Upstart Goblin for some added draw power. For traps, starting off we actually have the triple Stormy Mirror Force, our only non-counter trap of the deck. Decided to bump this up to 3, just because with the Fossil Dynas in there, you really want to be able to keep things like Fossil Dyna and Artemis on the board. So having the triple, the third one, just ensures that you'll be able to see it more, just be able to protect them from battle. To where you have the counter traps to protect them from like spell trap and monster effects, and then you have storming to protect your key monsters from battle. Next we have the triple drastic drop off. Actually a really good card, very underrated in this deck. Just basically makes it to where you have an instant Upstart Goblin with Bountiful Artemis, and you can also hit some really key cards off of this, which is really good, especially in combination with Necro Valley. Next we have the triple Solemn Strike, probably the best splashable counter trap in the game. Reason why it's still expensive. Next we have the triple Ultimate Providence, the best counter trap if you do have Ariadne on board because it's basically a free Inferni barrier. Next we have the double Chaos Trap Hole, really good with this meta still being very light and dark based, and again you don't pay cost of Ariadne. Next, we had the 2 Curse Seal, the Forbidden Spell. This was really good yesterday for negating Twin Twisters and just making it to where they can never Twin Twister me the whole game. Curse Seal, just overall, really good card. Then for the final card in the main deck, we have the 1 Solid Morning, which is always going to be a good card. So that's it for the main deck. Total of 40 cards. It's 11 monsters, 12 spells, and 17 traps. I'll go ahead and show the extra deck really quick, although it's very irrelevant, especially in this version that plays Fossil Dyna and doesn't play the Draco engine. But it is nice to have just in case, but I personally didn't go into it during the tournament. So for the Draco monsters, we have the 1 Dynaster, the 1 Ignister, and the 1 Paladin. For rank 4s, we have Dweller, Mugente Tsukiyomi. Really good for the fact that if you just say have 1 card in hand, you can go into this and then be able to discard that card and draw 2. 1 Castel, Dark Rebellion, really funny card to go into if you have Mage Power. Diamond Dire Wolf, Fairy Cheer Girl, Cowboy, 101, 106. Combo of Utopia and Utopia Lightning. Again, another really awesome card to go into with Mage Power. And finally, the 1 Starliege Paladynamo. So that's it for the extra deck. Now to wrap it up with the side deck. Starting off, we have the 2 Banished Radiance, just basically another like anti-meta card that you can side into if the deck is a bit more graveyard reliant. Next we have the triple MST for obvious things like Royal Decree. Next we have the triple System Down if we're going second against Cosmo, because again this deck can really struggle with big established boards. Next we have the double Debunk, basically here for those rogue matchups where Solemn Strike isn't as good. Can be a good side-in against Monarchs if you need something to side out the Solemn Strikes for. Also can be really good against Mermills as well. Next we have the double Wiretap, here for those really trap-heavy matchups like any of the Demise decks and Satellar Knights. Bringing Abyss and PK Fire as well. Then for the final side card, we have the triple Mask Restrict for Monarchs. So that is it for this updated deck profile for Counter Fairy Demise. I do hope you guys enjoyed it. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you guys next time.